This is an Ellis Mowers and More small engine repair. Stay connected on Instagram and Facebook at Ellis Mowers and More. Comments or questions? Leave them below or email me, ellis@ellismowers.com. Parts used in today's repair are found using the links in the description below. And as always, like and subscribe for more small engine content. Well, on today's video, we're in part 2 of this Cub Cadet LT1045. Yeah. Have so many things come through, I forget what I'm working on sometime. But so far in part 1, we took the deck off. We're going to go get that welded. And the big deal is we got it running. I was told that it was blown up. This mower was given to me for free. And I got it running. It was an exhaust valve, I'm pretty sure. It's been a while since I worked on that or got it running. That was way out of spec, and so the exhaust gases were being pushed back into the carburetor and it wouldn't start. As soon as I fixed the exhaust valve, put some oil in it, it ran just fine. But leaked a little bit of oil out because of the crack in the engine. The bolts on the top of the sump cover here were loose, very characteristic of Kohler Courage, and one of them's actually broken off. So at this stage, I'm scraping the gaskets and getting that broken off bolt out. And then we'll get started on the JB Weld portion of it and putting everything back together. So join me for the ride. I hope y'all enjoy it and hope you find something in this video helpful if you have the same issue that this mower has. Let's get started. So after a lot of scraping, wire wheel, whatever, gotten those good as I can, I think, on the gasket material on this as well as on the sump cover itself. Obviously I've got to do a lot of cleaning up. We're going to get to that, but what we're going to be doing now, I'm going to clean the block up. The cork gasket came off nice and easy. What needs to happen now? Oh, also I got the bolt out right here, which is awesome. Super excited about that. Just a left-hand drill bit, and I was able to drill it enough to grab it, and it just spun it right out, so that was perfect. In terms of a cracked block, this is what we've got to deal with now. So I've got a little bit of oil residue on the inside here that I need to clean off, and it looks like the crack goes under there as well, kind of right there in the middle of your screen, right about there. And I see a little bit of chipping right, a little chip right there around this intake exhaust valve, excuse me, which is where I'm most concerned about actually. So what I'm going to do is get all my hands clean out from underneath here as good as I can, because I've got some gasket residue that's still under there. I'll suck out the remainder of the oil down there and make sure everything's clean on the side here so that the JB Weld will adhere. Once I get to that point, we'll mix the JB Weld and y'all will rejoin me then. Well, it's that time for JB Weld. Looks like it says we got steel and we've got hardener. Looks like I've got a decent amount of time to set all this, so we're going to put some of the steel on this piece of cardboard. We're going to need a lot, so I'm going to be generous here. Put that back on. Let's see how much this makes. And then the hardener, about the same amount. Okay, It just wants to come out all the time, don't it? Okay. So, popsicle, let's do this. Oh, we'll need a lot more than this, but hopefully it'll give you a good idea as to what to do or what not to do, because this is my first time ever using original JB Weld here. So it says, clean it, squeeze equal parts from each tube into a disposable surface, mix thoroughly, apply with an appropriate tool with an even coat. So we're going to mix it all together here. We'll have to do multiple rounds of this apparently, and somebody is blowing my phone up. Wow. So just keep mixing. It's my wife putting our vacation photos on social media, that's what it is. And we're going to apply. So I think we've mixed it thoroughly enough here. And we'll apply onto the, I guess I'll just apply it using the popsicle. We'll just go through this cycle quite a few times, I think. And just pop it on here. We'll get kind of a base here, because we want to make sure that we get plenty of it on, because last thing we want is for this thing to open back up again. So the tricky part is going to be when I get down there to the corner. Already kind of getting hard on it, which is good. So I'll go ahead and rub some of this in. I don't know if I need to use my finger here and wipe it off or what, but we'll rub it in. Make sure we got a good solid bond. It's going to take between 15 and 24 hours for it to cure and set. So that's really thick. That's okay. I'm learning as I go, guys, so don't criticize too much here. Scrape off most of that off the top. That way the gasket seals good. We've got plenty right there. Okay, so I'm just going to keep working at this. Make sure everything's nice and setting pretty good, and hopefully we'll have everything done here in a few minutes. When it comes to the application, and then we'll just have to wait, play the waiting game, put a little cover over the engine so not a lot of dirt gets inside, and put it back together. Hopefully not have a crack. Alright, so I went and applied it with mostly with a popsicle stick. Had to do my finger just to kind of even everything out, because it did say apply in an even coat, and along those lines I do have one little area there that I need to touch up really quickly, which I will do in just a second. But like I said, I tried to put it in an even coat, tried to put it on there liberally so that the oil does not have any issues getting through or staying out, so to speak. So we've done it all the way down to where the crack ended, plus a little bit right there. Not the prettiest, But if what it does is stop the oil from leaking and keep the crack at bay, then it has successfully done its job. So I'm going to put a little bit right there where I said I missed it. And this thing, and we're just going to leave it like this. Because I was like, whenever I was doing the wire brush, I could actually see the crack trying to expand a little bit. So the block actually was moving just a little bit. And like I said, hopefully this is going to resolve the issues that it has. I've heard that this stuff works really, really well when it comes to repairing these blocks. Like I said, Terrell Fixes All did it. That's about the only reason why I'm attempting to do this. So I'm just going to clean the garage up some and wait on this. And I'll rejoin y'all tomorrow when we go through and start putting everything back together. Hopefully, we know it runs already, so we just got to keep everything from leaking, keep that crack from expanding, and we'll be in good shape, I think. So let's do it. Well, today is the next day, and we have let this JB weld harden. Like I said, it's not going to be a very pretty job, but form over, or function over form, I guess. So we're going to see what we can do here. Everything's hardened up. Feels a lot more solid. I don't see any more flex on it, which is good. So that's good. The bolt is out. I just got to clean everything up. Get a little towel or something and just kind of scrape up in there just to get most everything out of the bottom of this engine. And yeah, I just wanted to show you all that before I put it all back together. I'm letting it sit a little bit longer than 24 hours just to make 100% sure that we are in good shape. Y'all saw me take everything back off. I'm probably just going to go ahead and slap everything back together. Make sure you get your camshafts lined up like they were, and we'll double check that before we put the sump back on. And also put a little bit of JB weld right here on this because it was cracked a little bit because this area was vibrating so much, and just a tiny bit right there. So that should help in some aspects. It's just crazy how brittle these blocks are on these Kohlers. But we'll get it all back together. I'll let y'all rejoin me when I get the camshafts back on, because I do want to get the valve cover resealed and everything. So I've got RTV, which is what I'm going to use around here instead of another gasket. And it should work just fine. The same with this cover here. So that's what we're going to venture into next. Time to put everything back together. I have done my best to clean out everything I can underneath this bucket engine. That's as good as I can do, I think. I need to get a little bit of residue. I've gotten one of the camshafts in. I did remember a little mnemonic device. The one with the red tick went on the right side when you're facing the front. So I said, right is red. What I also did is I was able to line up the shaft with these two dots, if you can see them right there. That'll indicate that everything is timed correctly. So I was able to finally rotate the shaft. Seemed a lot easier today than it did the other day. These camshaft shafts, I guess you can call, you can twist them around freely, so that's kind of nice. And then it's just a matter of lining everything up. So move that out of the way. Let's see if we have this lined up. We don't. We can at least ballpark it. And that gets you, I guess, where we need to be. So that's good. Because if I twist it a little bit, it's not gonna make sure that it's, oh, it is gonna go down still. So, I need to make sure this locks in then, huh? Or maybe it's just trying to feel down here. Okay, so it did go in. I had it right then. That's good. Double checking by feel to make sure that those pins, those camshafts went into those pins like they were supposed to. So that's the orientation of the camshafts. We've got the tick marks lined up with the dots, if you want to be technical there. Now the next order of business is really just putting the sump back on, making sure everything's clean and clear on that, and we should be in good shape because that's just a governor right there, so that's not really that big of an issue. Just got to make sure everything is clean and clear on the inside here, and once we do that, we'll be ready to roll with putting everything back on and back together. Camshafts are lined up like I showed you. One thing I wanted to also show you is I've worked on this top sump some and got it a lot cleaner than it was. At least this thing was caked in oil, so that's good. Got to clean it off a little bit more. What I'm going to do though is get my RTV out and just put a nice big bead around the whole thing here. And once I do that, we'll press it down, and then we'll get our bolts and stuff out, bolt everything back together. So shouldn't be too terribly long now, hopefully. Just a matter of, after today, just a matter of having it sit a day so that we could get it all back running and situated. The deck's off at my parents'. My dad's going to weld that up for me, and we should be in good shape. I'll get this bead on, and I'll let you rejoin me when I get to the point where I'm going to put the sump back on. Well, there's the thick bead of RTV. I always go thicker than I think I need because you never know if you have an area that might leak or something along those lines. I've done it my best to do it as even as possible as well. Let's get the sump or the bottom cover here. And I think so. The governor arm, nothing much to it here. It doesn't look like. So as long as my governor flaps are on the correct side here for my valves, which they are. Timing marks are lined up. I'm just double checking everything. Going to turn this over. Don't drop it, otherwise you might have some issues. I'm going to make sure that the gasket is clean on the inside there before I put it in. And we're just going to slide this thing on. Here we go. And there it is. I don't mind seeing the red gunk oozing out because that shows you that I got plenty on it. So what I'm going to start doing now is another little trick that I do with these bolt holes here is I'm going to take, had to find it to make sure I still had it. On these front bolts especially, some of this thread locker, you can see it's kind of oozed out over the course of time, unfortunately. But I think I've got enough left. And I'm going to take it on the bolts that go in the front here. I'm going to take this thread locker. Whew, it's a mess. Just going to put a little bit on there. Don't need much. Just enough to get into the threads there. And we're just going to line it up. We're going to just finger tight or start it by finger. I'm just going to do all of them on the front here with this, because these are notorious for doing this. They're all, if I'm not mistaken, the same size. Ooh, got that one a little too high, but that's all right. Because these are not going to come back off. I'm just going to continue this process. Hand tighten all these. One of the bolts has this clip on it. I believe I had to go back and double check which one it was. It just held on a couple of wires, so I need to double check that one more time. And like I said, I'll put thread locker on all these on the front, especially, just so that it doesn't vibrate and loosen up. And I'll rejoin you when we get to the point where we're going to put the flywheel back on. So all the bolts are back on. I'm going to double check the torque of them. It says 18 foot-pounds is what we want. So there we go. And we're just going to kind of go down the line on each of them. I'm going to be really careful. As soon as it clicks, I'm not going any further, because the last thing I want to do is break off one of these bolts. And it's a little bit of a lengthy process, so I'm just going to keep cruising on here. Probably need to do one on the end here. There's probably a specified process by Kohler on how to do this. I'm just going kind of across and in a random order from one side to the other. Man, you always hope that nothing's going to break off when you do that. But like I said, we're using a torque wrench, 18 foot-pounds, 216 inch-pounds, and we'll get all of these tightened up. Then I'll go ahead and just pop the flywheel on, which is just a matter of getting the flywheel, the Woodruff key in here, and then just putting the flywheel back on, putting the nut on it, which we'll do after we get the starter back on and all these. Well, we'll wait on the ignition coil and this little device back in. But yeah, we're getting much closer, guys. So gotten everything back on before putting the flywheel on. Don't forget your stator. I've cleaned off the stator terminals. I've also cleaned off the magnets on the inside of the flywheel. I've also gone ahead and installed the starter. So we've got that going on, and I think we're in good shape when it comes to everything. think. So we'll go ahead. Let's see, so it's going to turn the engine that way. And we'll put the flywheel on. And we'll put the flywheel key on. And this is a Woodruff key, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to get this in. But hopefully we'll be able to get it in okay. Let me see if I can do it like this first. Probably can't, because it's a Woodruff key that I have to get in there. Yeah. So this may be a little bit difficult to get. So, because you got to get the key in there and get it to stay somehow while you put the flywheel on. Oh, I think I got it actually. Excellent. Not as hard as I thought. So everything, so we're on. That's linking up just fine with the starter, so that's good. And our next order of business is getting all this shenanigans back on, which it'll fall down in. There's a couple of holes that it'll fall down in. I don't put thread locker on this, because you're gonna oh, it only goes one way. It goes this way. Lines up with this. Yeah, don't put thread locker on this, because if you need to get that bag off, this bag off, you're gonna be in trouble. Gonna take a big impact with, I think it was a 14 millimeter, wasn't it? Put that back on, and then we'll gap the coil with a business card, and then we'll move on to the valves in the front and get those adjusted properly again. Seal the valve cover. I will go ahead and put all the covers and everything back on this thing, and then after that we just have to wait for everything to dry. So the flywheel nut's torqued down. Remember, don't forget to put your wiring through here for the ignition coil, which I have gapped accordingly to, well, I've got the spark plug in the engine, but I've got it gapped to about the width of a business card right there when it crosses the magnet. I'm at the process of putting the valve cover back on, and I've cleaned all the surface around the valve cover. I know there's a little bit of gunk on this head here still. Can't really do anything about that until I put the water, or so that there's no water intrusion. And we're just gonna slide, literally just slide this on just like that. And I know a bunch of red goo and stuff's come out. That's what I want though. I want to make sure that all of this is in properly. So I'm going to finger tight all of these bolts. Or get them started at least. Which is a little bit of a lengthy process, so I'll spare you all the time on that. But I found that this RTV works a lot better than them cork gaskets, which always leak on these things. So we're doing our best to prevent oil leaks. I think with the JB Weld, I think the crack is going to be fine. So as long as I didn't screw anything up, I'll go ahead and get all this stuff back together, like the engine cover and everything back on it too. And the next point I'll see y'all is when we fire this thing up. I'm going to tighten these and just tighten them up with an impact and just kind of top it off with just a 1/4 inch drive socket and ratchet just to make sure everything is good. So I'll get everything back on and we'll see if all the work has been done for good. So here you are. Don't forget to put this mounting bracket back on to T30s that has the fuel pump if yours is got that. Then we just set the cover on. It should fit around everything, hopefully. As long as I did everything right. I don't think I did that right, but yeah, it should just slide right down into place. Just make sure there's nothing that's causing any resistance. Something's causing resistance over here. Oh, I see it. There we are. It was a spark plug wire. Got to get tucked back in. Now it's just a matter of clipping this back on, putting the bolts back on for the engine cover, and we're very, very close. We've got to put just the two 10mm back on with the breather tube for the backing plate for the air filter. And we're there, guys. I showed you how to take all this off, so I'll just go ahead and put everything back on off camera, and we'll start it up next. So there we are. We're back. Put everything back together. I'm pretty confident that we're going to be good because it ran before. I put it back just like it was. Really no reason why it shouldn't start and run like it's supposed to. So I went ahead and did all that prep work so I don't have to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow I just got to let it sit on the jack stands tonight, let everything dry so that oil doesn't get into the valve cover and start dripping back down. And then tomorrow I'll get back out here and throw some oil in it, about, I think it's 1.8, 1.9 quarts in these bucket engines. And don't overfill them though. They don't like being overfilled. And, excuse me, we should be good to at least drive everything around and whatnot. And hopefully that will be good. I'll get the deck back and pop that back on, and this thing right here will hopefully be in business. I hope I don't eat my words. As long as everything turns out nice on this, this will be probably one of the nicest mowers I have ever fixed, number one, but definitely one of the nicest of the season. So it's the next day, and I guess I have a little bit of a confession time, and one mistake that you don't need to make, hopefully I have not. I don't think I have, but I realized that it is possible that I have this engine timed 180 degrees off. I don't think I do, for the reason that the camshafts and the crankshaft ticks were basically lined or not too far off, and I didn't sit there and spin the engine very much after. So I'm hoping that I did not time it 180 degrees off. It's back together. It's the next day. All the gaskets have dried and set. So I'm about to crank it up and see if I have fixed this thing or made a big mistake. So we'll see. smoke to burn off too, so. I'm letting it run at about a medium throttle. Ton of oil on the exhaust. I am a little relieved. I at least got it timed right? Steering wheel's a little off. I wonder if I can get that straight. But the good news is it runs and dries. I don't see it leaking any oil. We'll let it break in for a little bit here. Like I said, this was a running mower when I got it. Or they ran it until they thought they ran it out of oil. It sounds a lot better than it did too. It's not leaking oil. Hopefully it's not going to burn oil either. Just let it sit out here and run for a little while. Sounds really good. Just gonna give it a little break-in period, I suppose. Make sure it's not gonna leak any oil out anywhere. It doesn't sound like it's knocking or anything like that, so the smoke's cleared off the muffler, so that's good. Yeah, we'll just let it run, guys. And my dad's working on the deck, so as soon as that gets back, or if there's any other crazy developments, I will let y'all know. Alright guys, so it has run a little bit, and I'm just trying to document my experience here. And here's what's happened. You can see we've got a little bit of oil still here. It looks like everything held from about this point down, but this point up I can see a little bit of the crack still in that JB weld, and I'm wondering if I could put a second application on it and it'd be okay, or if I just need to give it up. I do need to get a gasket for it too on the valve cover, because that valve cover gasket, my little red RTV, isn't working very well either. Unfortunately, it's like I'm striking out here for some reason, trying to fix something that maybe shouldn't be fixed. I don't know. It runs good. Y'all heard it run. I just got to figure out, like, if I can get this sealed up to where it's not going to leak anymore, I'd be a little bit, you know, more inclined to fix it and be okay with it. Right now, obviously, I'm not. Maybe it's because I didn't clean everything up like I needed to. But I'm going to give it a little bit more of a look. I'm not going to give up just yet, but we are getting to the point to where it's like, at what point do I just slap something different on this, you know? We've got Briggs & Stratton's here in the back. I've got a Kohler Command that I could potentially put on it if I can figure out how to wire everything like it needs to be wired. I wonder if I could retrofit this voltage regulator to put on it. I'm not completely sure at this point, but a lot of figuring things out right now, guys. I will get around to it and I will let you know what I end up doing. I just wanted to show you my experience and the fact that my first attempt, at least, of doing this did not work. So I'm not going to take the engine back apart anymore. If I can get it to where it's not going to leak oil through the block here, like I said, I'll be a little bit more confident. All the bolts up top should be good because I torqued them down with red Loctite. It's just a matter of this crack right here coming back, and it shouldn't be vibrating back and forth. I could start it and run it one more time just to make sure, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Not all this goes well. A lot of it I don't show. Doesn't go well, and y'all see a lot of the good. This is not the worst thing in the world, but it's not the best thing in the world either. Ideally, I was hoping that JB Weld would have, you know, sucked everything together and fixed everything, but as you can see, it's not doing what it needs to at this point. So let me figure out what I want to do, guys, and I will get back to you and see what needs to be done here. Alright, guys, so I don't feel as bad as before after taking a look. I've taken a wire brush and kind of brushed back some of this JB Weld that I had. It looks like, for the most part, the crack right here has mostly been sealed. I may have just not gotten an area on the bottom. Like I said, I pulled the JB Weld back a little bit, and I'm going to Dremel most of it back off just so I can start somewhere. So I've got a little bit that I'm missing right there. I wonder if I just missed a couple of areas, but I could see where it was hairline cracking a little bit. In terms of the crack itself, though, it looks like what I did on the top with the block with the Loctite and putting all the bolts back together, that appears to have fixed that. I think if I can get it to where it's not going to leak oil through the crack, especially down here on the bottom, I think I'm going to be okay. And then I'll sort out the whole, probably just get a new OEM gasket to put on the valve cover. That's an easy fix. But I think, like I said, I think we're close. Most of the battle was getting everything tight up top so that the block itself was not going back and forth. I'm going to Dremel this, clean it up even better than I had it originally after taking a look at some videos, and see, like I said, as long as I can get this thing to where it's not leaking oil out the side here, I think we're going to be alright. So I got to do a couple of other things before I tackle this, but I will see what I can manage when it comes to hopefully fixing this crack for good. We're going to attempt this a second time. Hopefully we'll get it this time. I think my error in my ways was that I did not do enough prep work on the first run, and the fact that I didn't rough up the block enough. So what I have done is I have taken my Dremel, which is over there at this point, and knocked all the old JB Weld off. Hopefully the camera's not too dirty there. But knocked all the JB Weld off, and I've kind of like knocked the, kind of filled the crack in a little bit too whenever I did the Dremel. So you can kind of see the crack has kind of gone away, but we're gonna, so we've roughed up the block and everything like that. I'm gonna mix up some more JB Weld. I'm gonna take off the
Man, do I even need to take off the engine cover for this? I can get to it for the most part right there. My only concern is up top here where the crack meets the sump. But everything is tight. Like, the crack isn't expanding or contracting any because we have the sump bolts tight now. So, and Loctited too. So that's good. So let me mix up another round. I'm going to see if I can get this to set properly. I think I may have it a little bit too thick too. So let me see how I can manage this, and we're going to do a round 2 here. Hopefully this will work. If not, it seems like what we're doing helped some. So the biggest thing is I've got to get this down here. If I can get this down here, I think I'll be home free. So we'll give it a shot. What's the hurt in trying, guys? I know some of you are like, don't do it, don't do it. But if I can get the JB Weld to hold and I can get a few mows under it, I'm not going to sell this thing immediately because of that, then we might be all right. So let's see. So attempt number 2 is forthcoming. I have did the Dremel and all that good stuff, and now I have put this in here, the JB Weld, another coat. I've tried to do it more evenly this time, so we'll see if that holds any better. If it does not, I have another alternative that I have viewed on YouTube that involves a plate here and a clamp, like a clamp that actually becomes a permanent part of the engine that clamps in on the back side back here and on the front right there. So we have some options here, and I'm thinking, I didn't have much hope earlier, but I'm thinking that we can at least do something in terms of this in order to save it. It is gonna sit for at least 48 hours this time instead of the 24 or whatever. But then I also already have this assembled, so it's not going to be trying to compress and expand and contract as I put the sump gasket back on this time. So we'll see if this does any better. And like I said, we're just trying to make it so that the leaks aren't there. If we can get it where it's not going to leak, I feel pretty confident, especially after about 2 or 3 mows that I do with it, that we might have a winner here. Like I said, this is all an experiment at this point. If we can get this to where it's not going to vibrate anymore, then that's a good thing. So there's a first for everything. This is a first for me, so don't be too hard on me. I'm trying to learn as I go. I'm not going to just halfway send it because, number 1, this mower is too nice. Number 2, people pay hard-earned money to get lawn equipment. So that's where we're at on it. And just for insurance, I have put a 4-inch clamp kind of squeezing this together. Like I said, it's still fixed by the mounting bolts up top, but maybe we can get it to bond well. Difference in this one is that I did a little bit more of an even coat, especially under here, and I also didn't rub it in with my finger, which I think is the mistake that I made the last time. So like I said, experiment. Let's see what happens. So we're back on this. Second go around with JB Weld, marginally better. And you kind of makes you wonder, because it sucks, because this thing runs amazing. Runs about as good as any Kohler Courage I've ever had. Still got just the tiniest, the smallest drizzle down the engine block here. It is so small. What I did is I don't even know exactly where it's coming from. It's like it's almost not even worth it to even, because this thing's gonna leak from God knows where anyways. I'm gonna change this clip out. I got a 3-inch clip so that it's not so, out here.
And I'm also going to see, well, it almost looks like that valve cover may have stopped leaking. We'll see. I'm going to put the deck on it. This is going to be a to be continued, because what I'm going to do is, I know better than to sell it, just, you know, do all that major repair and stuff and then just sell it off acting like there's nothing wrong with it. What I'm going to do is actually use it and cut with it a few times, and if it's good, because we're early in the season, so this, you know, mowers are going to sell great for a while. Early in the season, let me see if I can get a few cuts on this. If the oil leak doesn't get any worse than it is, I will disclose that I did engine work on this. Not like I'm going to do a surprise or anything. So it is going to sell for probably more like $400 to $500 as opposed to $700 to $800. But remember, I don't have any money in it aside from the JB weld and the clamp, so, and the deck weld that my dad did, which I already had the paint from a previous mower. So condition wise, it's really good. Just need to pump up the tires in the front a little bit. But like I said, it's going to be a to be continued. I'm going to update y'all probably in a month or so as to if, you know, this thing has withstood the test of time, so to speak. I'll change the clip out after this engine cools down and pump the tires, put the deck on, give y'all a final, like, look at everything before we wrap this portion of the video up, before we revisit it here in a little bit. And just as a final ending to this will be to be continued, because I have let this sit here a couple of days after I ran it on that last video clip, or this is a couple days after that, and look at what's happened. We got another leak, and it's not coming from here, so there's something going on underneath now. So this saga is going to be continued. We'll see what we end up doing. Thanks again for watching.